Welcome back to another video, guys. In this video, Ryan and I are going to talk about money and how much you guys can potentially make as a recruiter starting your own agency. Ryan, how do you feel about just making a lot of money as a recruiter these days? What are your thoughts? Does this get you excited?
It does. Yeah. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy doing it and happy to share more about how others can do the same.
Let's do it. Let's do it. This is a popular question that we get asked all the time. And if you're new here, guys, welcome. Ryan also happens to be one of the main coaches in the recruiter school. Happy to have him on this video to kind of also share his own thoughts with you on his perspectives on all things in terms of income potential and how much you can make at your own recruitment agency. So let's go ahead and get started. So real quick, how recruiting agencies make money. Now, this is a very simplified slide. There's a lot more that we can add to this, but we're going to talk about some of the most common kind of ways that we see, or the things that you can kind of think about if you're thinking about starting a business right now as a complete noob and beginner. So number one, Ryan, direct placement. Walk us through this.
Absolutely. So when we talk about direct placement, also called permanent placements, this is when you are sending a candidate who will then be fully employed by your client. And so how that works from an earnings standpoint is normally we as recruiters charge a percentage of the base salary that the candidate will receive in their first year. That is what we call our placement fee. And so typically this ranges anywhere from 15 to 30% of that base salary. So let's say, for example, I make a placement for a software engineer with a $100,000 salary. And if we had negotiated a 25% fee, that means that once my candidate starts that job, I will then bill the client $25,000. And so what's nice about direct placement is it's all one big upfront lump sum payment. Now, that's what we love to see as recruiters. And there are a couple of different ways you can also kind of break up direct placement as well. And so, for example, there is contingency, which is what we see a lot of more entry-level recruiters who are really trying to establish themselves, focus more on the contingency route. And what that means is your services are contingent. So your client only pays you once you make that placement. If you don't make a placement for whatever reason, the client does not pay you. And so the risk is more on your side of the business, which conversely makes it a little bit easier to pitch to prospective clients. Because for whatever reason, if you don't give them someone they love, they don't have to pay you a dime. On the flip side, we also have the retained approach. And with retained, this is something that is more advantageous to us as recruiters, and it shifts the risk a little bit also onto the client. And so what that looks like is to even start the search, the client will give you upfront sum of money. That normally is, let's say 33% of what the total fee would be for the placement. So they'll give you a portion of the fee to start the search, and then oftentimes they'll give you another portion of the fee upon some given milestone, let's say a final interview, and then the final portion upon full placement. So it breaks up the payments and you get paid upfront before even making the placement. Last thing I'd like to mention when it comes to direct placement is exclusivity. This is huge, and something you should always try and negotiate when you're talking to prospective clients.
Are you struggling with getting responses from clients? Are you an established recruiter who is struggling to break six figures and beyond? Are you looking to start recruiting part-time and you don't know how? Do you feel burned out and stuck spending hours and hours each day in manual tasks like sourcing and outreaching and feeling like you have no time to actually run and grow your business? I am absolutely happy to announce that we have launched our own recruitment, educational, and coaching program to help you on your journey. We made sure that everything I've learned in the past 10 years, the tips, the strategies that really helped me build multiple seven figures of placements on my own desk with some of the best companies in the world will be included in there. We'll also be including things like how you can build an acquisition system that brings in clients every month to your agency hands-free, how you can maximize the probability of a positive close during negotiations, how you can automate and outsource your day-to-day operations so that you don't have to spend hours per day researching or sourcing, how you can figure out the new and modern way to scale your agency that minimizes risk and maximizes your upside potential. And we've also included much more. The best thing about this is not only will you be getting amazing content, but we will also handhold you and be with you every step of the way to make sure that you are held accountable and you crush your goals. We'll also share with you our own tech stack, tools, and plugins we actually use, plus everything else we know about automation and AI to help you save time, work smarter, and not be a slave to your business. The exciting news is that we've actually rolled this out to a select few people earlier this year, and I'm excited to see them well on the way to multiple six figures, with some breaking $30,000 to $50,000 per month already. So if you're interested to be a successful recruiter that can dominate in any market conditions, make sure you click on the link below to chat with another member of our team, and we're happy to chat with you to see if we can help you out. Make sure you jump on this really quickly. See you on the other side.
Last thing I'd like to mention when it comes to direct placement is exclusivity. exclusivity. This is huge, 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 and something you should always try and negotiate when you're talking to prospective clients. Exclusivity essentially means if I am working with client, Preston's my client, and we have exclusivity, I'm the only recruiter working on this role. I'm not competing against 1, 2, 3, 5,000 other recruiters. It's just me. And so when you have the exclusivity, that means there's a higher likelihood of you making the deal and making the placement. So when you're negotiating, always try to pitch them on exclusivity.
Just
What are
to
your thoughts?
add, yeah, so just to kind of add extra thoughts to this, continuously retain exclusive, it's also in a very intentional order, right? So if you are a brand new recruiter, it's also in the order of ease of acquiring clients and difficulty, right? So it's always, 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 we recommend go the contingent route because that's the easiest way for you to be able to get clients because it's less risk for them. When you become a recruiter, if you're doing this as a side hustle, a full desk, a solo recruiter, or you want to aspire to kind of run an agency with teams, the first thing you need to do before anything else is how do you go out there and get your own book of business? How do you get your clients? And as amazing as like retained sounds and exclusive sounds, if you lead with that, I'm sure there's definitely a possibility you can get clients, but it's much, much, much easier for you to get your foot in the door as a contingent, prove your worth, and then maybe you can always upsell or evolve into a retained and exclusive. Also, while retained does sound good, if more kind of consistent income coming in, it may or may not be for you. I know recruiters who prefer contingency. For example, myself, right? I know recruiters who only want retained because like, hey, we want some upfront fee and I'm putting in a lot of hours. It really just makes sense and it feels fair to get something. And I totally get it. You just have to decide where on this scale or spectrum that you want to go and just fly with it, right? Also, you can stick with one and you can always switch to another, or you can maybe try doing contingency and retain. But as we're filming this, the market is extremely competitive here in 2024 going into 2025. It's much, much more difficult, right? What we're seeing to kind of get clients on board who don't even know who you are on a retained engagement, let alone even the exclusivity one, right? So always kind of do what you can, be flexible on the fee. We all, of course, want to go and shoot for the moon with 30% fees, but to get yourself in the door, maybe you can play with things that you have control over, the percentages and even contingent. Now, the second thing that we also want to go over is contract staffing, right? So direct placement is placing a full-time salary person into a company. And just to clarify one more thing, the candidates don't pay us anything. The people who only pay staffing and recruitment agencies are the companies. I want to make that crystal clear in case that you're still confused. And that's also a question that we get asked a lot. Now, the second thing is staffing, right? Because there's also not just full-time placement, there's also staffing, hourly, freelance placements as well. Now, there's a little bit different nuance between this and direct placement. So number one, when you do contract or staffing, the talent is an employee of your agency. You basically contract them out to clients. They're not actually employees of the clients. So to do that properly, you obviously have to be able to find a really good payment partner. There's more kind of taxes. There's more like financial or legal issues that you have to really stay on top of. But essentially how that's calculated is instead of like a one-time fee, you get a markup of each hour the talent works. So conceptually, it's awesome, right? It's kind of like the retained idea. It's, oh, wow, I can get paid more in a stable manner every single week, every single month. That's what staffing is. So instead of getting one lump sum in the beginning or the end, you get paid every single week, which is fantastic. But as I was alluding to earlier, it's a little bit more complicated because you need a payment partner. You got to think about, other kind of implications legally, financially, and also taxes wise. You got to approve the hours. You got to send the approval hours to the hiring manager. So it's a lot more complex and many more steps. Not just that, depending on what kind of staffing that you also do, that you might also have to cough up some of your real money first to be able to pay the hourly kind of earnings to your talent as well. So it's a little bit more risky, whereas like contingency or direct placement, you just get paid. You don't have to cough up any upfront fees ourselves. It's just the company paying us, right? But in terms of scaling long term, imagine having one contract staffing talent on your payroll. That's fantastic, right? Monthly income. Now, what if you have 3 or 5 or 10 contract staffing? Then it could be extremely lucrative and fulfilling and extremely stable moving forward, right? So that's why we see a lot of people doing that. It might be a little bit hard to kind of get off the ground and it might just be a little bit more risk. But again, this is not to say that you should not do it if this is what you want to do. But again, improving hours, you got to even think about benefits and other kind of implications. But again, fantastic opportunity. A lot of industries and markets out there, they look for contract staffing as well. And so it could be a fantastic opportunity for you to get clients. Now, it's also a little bit more expensive for the clients as well to hire someone on a freelance basis from a recruitment agency. So it's more expensive for the clients in the beginning. It's also more expensive for you to get started in the beginning. That's why most people don't really do this when they're starting out, but it can still be a fantastic, fulfilling business model to explore. Do you have any other thoughts, Ryan, that you want to add to this?
No, you're good. You covered most of it. Just want to underscore what you'd mentioned too. For starting out, we normally recommend going with direct placement, but then down the line, if you think it is a good next step for your business, absolutely worth exploring recruiting, staffing.
Yeah. And again, there's many more sub models within direct placement, like C levels or outsourcing or things like that. But if you want to get started and you want to make as much money as fast as possible, as easy as possible, direct placement contingency is the way to go. Yes, you will be competing with other people, but if you are good at what you do, that should not scare you. Competition's everywhere, but also a lot of the competitors out there are just not good. So it's a really fantastic opportunity for you to kind of dig in your niche, or a niche within a niche within a niche, and just dominate that space, and then establish some goodwill, good track record with clients, get your fees up over time, maybe start pitching retained or exclusive, especially to your main cash flow clients, or the ones that who end up keep coming back to you where you have a strong relationship, and then just go with the flow and try to maximize as much as possible. Now, let's talk about agency costs and scalability. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts with cost and profit margins?
Yeah, definitely something we have to talk about because up to this point, we've been talking about the fun part, us getting paid, but you also have to keep in mind as a business owner, there are expenses that you incur as well. And so that's really important to include in the calculus when you're considering, all right, how should I start my business? When should I start my business? Things like that. So first things first, there are some initial setup costs, getting your website online, getting a LinkedIn subscription. What tools are you going to use? Once you establish those up front, then you can figure out, okay, actually reaching out to clients, how do we get them into our book of business? I will say though, especially for starting out solo, once you have those initial tools set up, there isn't a ton of overhead you really need to pay for. You don't necessarily need an office right away. You can work remote. As long as you have your tools, you can send out emails with a computer, you have a phone to make calls. That's really the bulk of what you need to do. It's not a high cost business as you might get in some other industries. Now, when it comes to tools, one of the big questions we get is what tools do I need? How much do I need to spend on tools? And one thing that Preston and I always preach is it depends. It depends on your budget, what you're looking to do, how much time and energy you're looking to put into it. You can be successful with a $100 budget for tools every month, and you can be successful with a $2,000 budget every month for tools. Obviously, the more you pay, the more you'll get out of it, more automated and things like that. But there's no reason why you have to be shelling out big bucks every single month to be successful as a recruiter. And correct me if I'm wrong, Preston, but when you had started out solo, you had just like a Google account and a phone, and you were super successful. Am I right?
Guys, I had no money. Like, I had actually negative money. So I had to borrow my fiance's credit card to get started at that time. So if you guys even have like $5 or $10 in your bank account, you're way ahead of me. But recruiting is one of those beautiful things where you can operate a successful business with minimal no cash. Will your life get easier if you do have a budget to reinvest into tools? Absolutely, right? And adding to that point, there's no reason why, guys, even if money is no issue, for you to be able to spend more than $300 to $500 or $600 a month on your own desk, max. But if you're like, wow, I don't even have that, I have maybe $100 to $200 a month, absolutely, you can totally get started in a more lean and budget fashion. So the recruitment agency business model, if you're starting as a freelancer or an aspiring agency owner, it's really accessible, right? Like, you can become a really great recruiter with not that much capital. But again, does money help? Yes. And should you be able to use money to make you a better recruiter? Absolutely. But the assumption here is that I was able to do really well. I was able to bill about $524,000 on my first year, and we were paying probably not even like $200. No. I think in the beginning, it was like, yeah, you're right. It was like Google Sheets, Google Excel, and the only thing I could afford, I think, was like LinkedIn Lights. I think that was about $150 per month. That's all I paid for. And then I was able to make the most money I ever made in my entire life. And you can still do that now with the fine print that like you have really strong fundamentals. So would I have been able to bill $500,000 on my desk with zero or very weak fundamentals? Absolutely not. I knew exactly how to go out there. I knew how to bring in clients manually. I knew how to find candidates manually. I knew how to put it together manually. There's no AI, no automations. I didn't even use an ATS, a CRM, nothing. I just knew how to be an amazing rock star recruiter. And if you have a strong bedrock like that, yeah, you can still be really successful even now in a time that we're filming. But in the beginning, I just had to make it happen, right? I didn't have any money, and recruiting conceptually is easy. Clients, candidates put together. But again, treat it like a business. And I was also just very, very lucky. I had no idea I would be able to make that much. And so the fact that we did that just blew my mind, gave me more inspiration to then reinvest profits into the right tools, and then to kind of go fast forward. But again, adding one more point, the first even 5 or 6 years of my solo recruitment career, I didn't use AI. I didn't use automation. It just goes to show you don't need these things to make money. These things are there to help you recruit better. And so a lot of times when we talk to recruiters, it's like, hey, I want to know a lot about automation and AI. And Ryan and I, we get these questions all the time. My first question is, well, what are you guys billing? And if they're like, we're not billing anything, or we only did one placement this entire year, I'm like, guys, you got to focus on leaning everything out, stop spending and wasting your money on all these tools. Let's get to the bedrock of the foundation first. Let's bring the costs as low as possible, maximize those profit margins, and let's get to work. And then you can slowly reinvest. But again, once you know what you're doing, man, being a recruiter is fantastic. No need to rush guys to hiring. Being a solo recruiter making multiple six figures or significantly more, all that cash going into your pocket, like life is great. You can really have that digital nomadic lifestyle if that's all you want. And then most people actually, when they get there, they're like, I don't need to scale any further. Like life is great, right? But again, Ryan, I really appreciate you bringing this back up. It was good times. It was also really stressful times. But again, just want to be crystal clear, guys. If you have no money, recruiting is one of those things, unlike other businesses where you can still get started and then you can slowly build over time.
Yeah, 100%. And I love your point too about needing to know the fundamentals before you think about what fancy bells and whistles am I going to use? Because at its core, you still want to understand, okay, what is this fancy tool doing? And you should be able to do that manually before outsourcing that to some, fancy system or AI software. So definitely good to have that foundation before you build up and scale, whether that's with a team or with some kind of tool. In that same vein of scalability, like you said, being a solo recruiter can be awesome. Like there's no need to build a huge megacorp recruiting agency off the bat, right? You can absolutely have a great living, like you said, be comfortable and have that whatever lifestyle you so choose. But there is also a time where some folks realize, all right, it is time for me to grow my agency, or it is time for me to put some building blocks in place to build this thing up. And there is really a number of different ways you can do that. First, when you think about your desk and how can I expand my desk, you can expand into different niches or sub niches within your, umbrella niche. You can add just new clients, reach out to different types of companies, larger companies, public or private, whatever, you haven't been reaching out to, you could add that to the mix or expanding geographically as well. We always say ideally, if you can recruit in your area where you can meet clients and candidates in person, that's awesome. If you reach a certain point, or if you live somewhere that there isn't a lot of folks, it does make sense eventually to increase your scope geographically as well. So those are all ways to just scale your specific desk. But if you think too, I need to scale my team, my agency as a whole, you can start thinking about building out a team. And when you think about building out a team, you can think about, do I want domestic people? Do I want people living in the same country as I am? Or do you want international virtual assistants? A lot of pros and cons we can get to with that as well. But you got to start thinking about, what does scaling mean to you? Because scaling your business probably looks different than scaling the next guy's recruitment agency as well. You have any thoughts on that, Preston?
I love talking about scaling because this is on everyone's mind, right? So when it comes to business, when it comes to recruitment, scaling needs to, first of all, come after you understanding tactically what to do, right? So going back to the fundamentals and then operating at a high level. Once you do that, then you got to be like, okay, where am I inefficient? How can I become more efficient? And how can I grow my business, not in terms of revenue, but also maybe I want to hire more. And so to be able to scale correctly in the recruitment age, there was the old school traditional model where everyone just hired more salaried people, kind of putting talent against the wall and seeing what sticks. And, whoever does well, whoever doesn't well leaves and they just replaces the person. That model still works, but there's also a reason why at the time of the filming right now, a lot of really big recruitment staffing agencies are suffering and actually are doing layoffs when they've never done layoffs before, right? Because the market is changing a lot. Technology is advancing to the point where it allows smaller businesses like us, even solo recruiters like us, to be able to scale more intelligently, to do it smarter in a new modern way than how businesses have always done in the past. And so if all you do is just hiring salary people, that's great. That's also still a great way to do it. It's the best way to build a culture. It's the best way to really get to know your team. You can hang out together, right? It's fantastic for long term, but starting out, it's extremely stressful and high risk. You hire the wrong people once or twice or three times, that can absolutely destroy a small business, right? Because of all the finances that you have to invest and really kind of risk all that. But if you hire really well, it can catapult yourself for success. But again, the assumption here is I would love to see you guys making sure you know the fundamentals first, because you never want to treat scaling like a magic pill. That's another slippery slope I see a lot of people do. It's like, oh, I'm struggling. I need to hire a biz dev guy to solve my problems. Well, in recruitment, guys, staffing and recruitment is sales. You're building a sales organization. While this method might work better in another model, maybe like software or anything else, in sales, like if you can't do it yourself, how are you going to effectively lead or manage someone else to do the same thing? So if you can't even bill six figures at the minimum, multiple six figures, if you can't even bring in clients, how are you going to teach someone else to do that, right? So again, I think to me, that's just absolutely wasting money. So step one, make sure that you have a foundation. But step two, then you got to think about, how do I work smarter, which is implementing, creating systems, utilizing best-in-class tools, automations, and AI that me, Ryan, our agency, our students use. And then how do you hire the right people correctly, right? So there's an old way of hiring. There's also a modern way of hiring, which I think takes the best of both worlds with salaried and international kind of one-off specialists, being able to kind of combine the two together with the right systems and tools so that if you do this correctly, you can not only separate yourself from the business, you can actually have the business run itself without you spending hours a day having to do the outreach yourself. Leads and candidates come into your inbox where you just can focus on hiring more people and closing clients. But then, you're really setting up that foundation to hire more people or scale your business as far as you want to go. Now, in terms of automation and systems, like we can go on and on and on and on about this, but to talk about it high level, there's so many ways to be a better recruiter. There's so many inefficiencies, so many time sinks from the client side to the candidate side. What if you can find a way to be able to create an optimal workflow where you can save hours per day and save hours per week so that you can really focus on then being a CEO and a business owner than someone that really has a glorified job and they're stuck into their business, right? And while that's stressful, like my first 5-6 years, what I talked about where we didn't use any tools, it was stressful. Like it was really hard for me to turn off on weekends, turn off on vacations, really spend time and be present for my family. It's great, especially if you're making a lot of money, but is it sustainable? No. And the only way to be sustainable and to save hours again so that you can really enjoy the weekends and travel is to really implement the right systems, the tools, the automation practices, and then ultimately combine that with the right way of hiring so that now you're creating a machine that basically brings in and does all the work for you. So scaling is fantastic, guys, and you can scale recruitment agencies as far as you want to go. But one thing that you have to understand also, going back to the cost and profit margin, is the bigger your team gets, the bigger a business gets, the lower the profit margin of the entire business, right? And the higher drama, the higher the risk, the higher the expenses, the higher the politics that you now have on your team. It's just more things that you have to deal with. But I understand like you have to hire to a point to like have achieved time freedom. I think that's what every business owner aspires to do. But recruiting agencies can be amazing with a small team, a team of 3, maybe of 5 or less, maybe no bigger than 10. You really don't have to go that big where it's extremely high profit margin. The team is just super efficient, cranking and producing at a high level, drama and expenses and risk at a low level. Like it's just amazing. So I think like enjoy the solo phase, but if you're looking to kind of expand and scale, don't jump to hiring 5, 10, 20 people. Like that's great, but try to also really enjoy that, team of 3 or team of 5 because life is great. You can just be a really small team that loves each other, that works really hard. And man, you guys are killing and crushing it. So I know that we can, of course, make future videos really talking more granularly about scaling and cost and profit margins. This is just my own thoughts and perspectives based on my own experience and what we're also just hearing from other people. And so hope that helps and hope that gives you value. And I guess just to kind of add this, just one more thing when it comes to just hiring, yeah, like you can do domestically, you can do international, domestic. You might have some communication and loyalty issues. Same thing with freelancing, right? If they're freelancing for you, they're probably freelancing for 10 other companies, but they could be fantastic if you're on a budget or if you really need help with like a one-off thing, fantastic. Now, another thing is, hey, do you want someone full desk or 180? There's really no right or wrong. It's how you want to structure it. But that's why Ryan and I and the team and myself, after all these years, have invested a lot of time and money to really create what we call the ideal autopilot acquisition system, which is the ideal optimal workflow of optimized tools, AI automation, plus the right way of hiring so that our business basically runs itself and we can help you do the same thing as well. So Ryan, any additional last thoughts here for you?
The only thing I just wanted to highlight again is that scaling is very personal. It's a personal decision. What scaling looks like for you is going to look different than what it looks like for me. And that's all comes down to your preferences, what you're looking to do. Are you looking to just have your one-person show? You just do everything and just put in some AI system to help you scale your one-person business? That's awesome. Or if you think, all right, I want to build this into a 20-person company, 50-person company, 100-person company, that's cool too. There really is no right or wrong answer to what scaling looks like. And so really it comes down to you having to think to yourself, okay, where am I now? Where do I want to be in the future? And what makes the most sense to connect those 2 points?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on. So let's talk about earning potential. Guys, again, we will talk about the fundamentals, right? We don't really care how many years you've been a recruiter. It doesn't matter to us if you've been recruiting for 5, 10, 20, 50 years. My question to you is like, how much are you billing? And if you guys say, hey, on my own desk, I can bill $500,000, $1 million, I'm like, great. You have fantastic fundamentals. Let's not focus on optimizing and going for the moon. But if you're like, hey, I can't even bill 6 figures, I can't bill 50K a year, I can't even do 1 or 2 placements, we have an issue. We got to learn and have strong fundamentals. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is if you have strong fundamentals without the systems, AI automation, you can make a lot of money. Like your earning is unlimited, uncapped. You add automation and systems and hiring on top of that, it's uncapped. You can go literally shoot for the moon. But there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to make minimum six figures a year, minimum. In terms of what we're seeing just as industry as a whole, most recruiters, I would say probably bill between 150 to 300 on the agency side. I would say like this is pretty, like the majority of the people, this is the average recruiter and what they can kind of produce. When we're kind of going towards a 300 plus, the 3 to 500,000, I would consider those to be like top performers, right? People who have really strong fundamentals and they know what they're doing. Clients can, they can bring them in consistently. And then the top 1% are the ones that can do 500 million, 2 million plus on their desk. They're just pros in their market. They know exactly what to do. But if you're just asking me, hey, how much can I make? My answer to you is it's unlimited. It's absolutely unlimited. What about the next point, Ryan?
Absolutely. And so again, it's fun to talk about these big numbers, right? And how much you can earn, but also got to think about how do you get there? And one of the biggest answers to that question is consistency, day over day, week over week, month over month, and especially on the business development side, the client development side. Because as we've said many times over, if you don't have clients, you don't have a business, right? Because those are the ones who pay you. And so just ensuring that you always have exciting hot job orders on your desk is key to crushing it as a recruiter. And I know one thing that Preston always says to us on the team, whenever we get a placement or we get a new client or get a new deal, we're always excited and celebrating. He's like, awesome, that's great. Keep consistent with the business development. Even when things are going awesome, even when you're bringing in the placements, keep doing business development because that is really the crux of being a successful recruiter. And so we always strive to have between 3 and 5 what we call tier 1 clients. These are the clients who are responsive, who are, exciting companies who want to work with us. And if you always have a few of those ready to go, always sending you roles, you're going to be great. You're going to be, riding off into the sunset. One thing I also will say here too is you always have to consistently audit your clients. Just because a client is great today doesn't mean they're going to be great next week. Doesn't mean they're going to be great next month. And so you always got to be keeping track of, all right, are my clients responding? Yes, no. If they're not, maybe they drop to a tier 2 client in your mind and you think about what other clients can I reach out to kind of fill that gap. So one, always make sure you have some really good clients, but two, just because they're good clients today doesn't mean they will be in the future. So always ensure that you have that consistent flow of incoming clients. And one thing that really helps with that is what we've been saying this whole video: systems, automations, tools, processes. Once you can build out a flow that works for you and your business to consistently have that, leads coming to you, you'll be set. But to get that consistent output, you need to have that consistent input again, day over day, week over week, month over month. Just showing up is really half the battle. So if you can do that every single day, you'll be on a strong track towards success.
Strong track of success. I love the phrasing of that, Ryan. I completely agree, guys. And I think the biggest thing is consistency. But for me, it's always about like thinking into the future while also enjoying the present. Like if you do a placement, awesome, right? Let's celebrate, let's enjoy it. But I always think about the future. Like I never want things to be based on luck or be a flash in the pan and you do really well this month and then you struggle next month. Like to me, consistency is absolutely everything because I want to do consistent placements throughout the year. I don't want to just do all of them on January and then struggle the rest of the year. I'm sure you guys agree with me, right? So to do that successfully, you got to be consistent starting today. So for example, if it's in January, you want to see placements next month, you got to be consistent in January. If you want to see placements or new clients in March, you got to be consistent in February, so on and so forth. That means every day and every week, you got to be consistent because what you put in is what you get out, right? And so going to the next couple points in terms of earnings, couple kind of things that you can do. You can always obviously shoot higher on your fee percentage. The higher it is, the higher your placement fee is, the more money in your pocket, right? But again, be strategic. If you're brand new and you're struggling to get clients, perhaps maybe you can be okay lowering this a little bit, prove your worth, and then upping this for subsequent positions, right? And then be analytical, like understand the KPIs so that you can really reverse engineer. Like, hey, if I want to make six figures a year, that's assuming each placement is $20,000 to $30,000 conservatively. I need to be doing maybe 4 to 6 placements, right, per year. And when you kind of break it down like that, it's like, oh wow, maybe like one placement every other month. For me to do a placement, how many clients do I need, right? How many submissions do I need to do? How many interviews do I need to do? And then now you have a clear game plan every day and every week so you can consistently hit that. And the crazy thing about this is when I talk to people about recruiting and they're like, wow, $100,000 a year is like 4 to 6 placements in a year with 12 months. That's really every other month you do a placement. It's kind of crazy. Automatically, like it gets people excited and they're like, wow, it's a lot more feasible than I actually thought. And so if you do double that, now you're making $200,000 a year. That's almost a placement a month. Like it's just mind-boggling thinking about these big numbers really, really early on, like in more of a realistic manner. But to really help you, again, we're all about like breaking things down to as simple and granular as you can be. And to help with that is the KPIs and really understanding like how many chances take for an interview, take for a submission, take for an offer, how many outreaches do I have to do to get one client, how many calls do I need to get a converted client. And if you understand these numbers, then it just becomes a numbers game for you and you know exactly what to do, execute that roadmap so that you are well on your way of hitting your annual goal, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And this kind of goes into a question that Preston and I get all the time is how many emails do I need to send a day to candidates or to clients? How many phone calls I need to make a day? And we always then is like twist that question back on you and it's like, hey, what's your KPIs? What are your numbers? And if you know, if you've done the math, you've done the analysis, and it says, all right, I need to submit 9 candidates to get 1 offer. All right. And then we say, okay, well, so you need to submit 9 candidates. Out of the people that you speak to on these candidate calls, how many do you end up submitting? I submit 1 out of every 2 candidates. All right. So you need 18 calls to submit 9 people for 1 offer. So you need 18 calls. How many emails or calls you need to make to talk to 18 people? And just the math goes on from there. If you follow all the way to the end, that'll tell you exactly how many calls you need to make a day, how many emails you need to make a day to get every number and go down that funnel to get to your placement.
I think we covered this pretty well in terms of earning potential. So let's wrap it up with one more slide. So how do you go ahead and increase your earnings? So again, it really helps to have a fantastic niche. And what we mean by lucrative niches, some niches lead to higher placement fees than others, right? Legal, tech, finance, healthcare. You of course still want to be open to lower fees if you can access volume roles. This is something that we do all the time. Of course, we want to have higher fees, but if the client's like, hey, we need your help with X role, the salary's lower, the fee is lower, but you have access to 10, 20 jobs, of course, me and my agency will take that, right? Specialized expertise or focus on high demand roles can maximize revenue. A basic best practice is we like to take on roles with minimum $100,000 salary. And if you can land anywhere between, 15 to 30% or even lower, 15 to 18%, even 10 to 18%, that's still a good chunk worth your time. What about the second point, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back to what we were talking about consistency day in, day out. And it kind of goes back to the adage of hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? At the end of the day, none of this is rocket science. We're not doing anything super complex, but the ones who see the most results are the ones who put in the most input day after day after day. So, the more that you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. It's simple as that. And so just want to underscore again and again and again, it's all about consistency. It's one thing to, send 100 emails today, then take a break for 3 days and then send another few hundred emails the next day. Maybe you'll get a few replies here and there, but if you want to see that consistent success, you got to be consistent with your hustle, with your input day in, day out.
Last but not least, guys, as fun as it is to always talk about money, recruiting is a relationship business, and the most fulfilling opportunities or even things that you're not even thinking about right now come from relationships and how you make people feel, right? Networks and relationships is the foundation of recruiting, and it should be as much as it is to, fun talking about incomes and placements and stuff like that. Really, all that's possible and is made much more easy. Like you can make most amount of money, wildest dreams, if you really make an effort to make strong relationships. I can't tell you, some of our best clients, even now, 10 years later, are the ones I made an effort to create strong relationships with from day one. So if you have a chance to meet your clients, get coffee with them, get drinks or dinner with them, or hang out with them, really build that friendship, you can potentially create an opportunity where this one client, he could be reaching out to you for his entire career or his business. What if he exits and what if he starts a new business? Who do you think he's going to reach out to? You again. So a lot of the people that I work with right now are on their second and third plus businesses, or maybe they were candidates and they had such a good experience with us. They became hiring managers. They need hiring help. Who did they reach out to? Us. So I do not want to underplay, and do not underestimate the importance of building relationships. As much as we love technology, don't let that completely substitute the human personal elements of recruiting. So if you can meet someone in person, do it. Even a video call is better than a phone call. But if you can go beyond that, networking, build friendships, hang out with them, I promise you those are going to yield so many amazing opportunities in the future that you're just not even thinking about right now. So keep planting the seeds, make efforts. Of course, we're all about embracing technology to make our jobs easier, but go out of your way. Maybe once a month, be like, hey, I want to meet one client in person, or maybe I want to meet at least 2 candidates in person if you really just enjoy staying at home, being remote. But the more effort that you put in here, it will yield so many more fantastic new conversations and relationships. Like a client can introduce you to another client, or a new candidate, or a candidate can introduce you to a new client. You just never know, right? So focus on obviously being a good recruiter, but focus first and foremost on building strong human relationships. And don't ever forget that in your recruiting career, because that will be your superpower, and it will just yield such amazing more opportunities and experiences for you as a recruiter running your own business into the future. So Ryan, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think it just boils down to the saying that play long-term games with long-term people. That's what you want to do, right? And when we think about recruiting, it's a people business. We're all about helping people, helping solve their people problems as well. And so when you take the mindset of, I'm here to help people, I'm here to help them with some problem they're facing, then that mindset is going to help you in the long term. Don't think about, I get this placement, it's going to make me XYZ amount of money. Think about, how can I help this person? The more value you can provide for the long term, it's going to pay you out in dividends into the future.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I hope that this video helps. We're all about you becoming recruiters, but we're also excited about you becoming amazing, dominant recruiters. towards making those levels of income that you dream of. So put in that work, but also don't forget to scale correctly, to embrace the right systems and tools and automations. If you have any questions, you want to level up your agency, feel free to reach out to us or book a call with us. Happy to see how we can help. But recruiting, the income that you can make here if you're good is unlimited, guys. So would love nothing more for you guys to absolutely crush it and stay consistent, have a long-term mindset, and we'll be rooting for you from the sidelines.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Preston.
You got it. Thanks, Ryan, for being on the call. If you guys want to see more videos of Ryan and I, any other topics, comment down below. But we appreciate your time and we'll see you on the next one.